Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning, Victor.
What a beautiful Saturday morning in this part of northeast of Northport. We are on the Panacea Boulevard, and we are looking at what's going around here. And I see the Arbor Oaks just by Pulte going up here. We talked before. This land was going through some major changes, changing hands, correct? Mostly
Yes,
three big developers were taking
and I believe the
stakes here.
history was that there was a developer that owned all of this land coming from, I guess, from on Panacea, coming in on
Price
Panacea,
to
yes, to Price and Toledo Blade, and
Hubbard land.
and also branching out onto Plantation. They went bankrupt in about the mid 2000s, and then the property was purchased by three developers. I think Benderson, Pat Neal, and one other. And they bought it for pennies on the dollar. And those developers were not paying these CDD fees.
Yeah, and the place, specifically the boulevard and surroundings, were not developer not paying their dues. Therefore, it went kind of neglected.
Yes.
And new elections cycle came around the corner, correct?
Yes, in
What was that?
2016. Yes.
2016, and at that time, one of the candidates was making promises to help with it, correct? Two of them?
Chris
Okay.
Hanks and Miss McDowell, yes.
Okay, so Ms. McDowell was trying to help, but help with the rest of the Northport chipping money to do what the CDD should have done, correct?
Well, what the problem was is that this property, and we're mainly talking about the median, and there will be videos attached to this podcast, and the median and the two right-of-ways next to the sidewalk. When Rhonda and I were in office, we and Tom Jones would not accept ownership because it was not in the original development order. And those developers were not contributing to the CDDs at the time, could have been the HOAs. And so the few residents that were here were having to pick up the tab. The problem is that the city could not come over and manicure or maintain these right of way in the median because it didn't belong to the city, and we would have been considered trespassing. And there is a lawsuit that was filed against the city. It was an intercity lawsuit. The CDD lost, and the CDD then had to take control of the maintenance of the property, and that included
The roads.
well, the roads were taken by the development order, so those were not a problem. Roads, bicycle lanes, and sidewalks, those were all in the original development order, and we had no problem taking those. So here comes about 2017, and in the 2016 election, the city, actually the CDD, allowed the right of way and the median to overgrow to the point that some of the weeds were knee high. So it became a major campaign issue, but we couldn't do anything as a city because we didn't own the property. So then here comes 2017. The promise by McDowell and Hanks was that they would force the people of the city of Northport to take possession of this property, and we would have to maintain it, we the taxpayers. They did that in early 2017. So now we, the taxpayers, have to pay to maintain the median and the right of way. And that's why Victor and I came out here to allow you to see what's going on after Hurricane Ian with the median. And it's going to cost an enormous amount of money to upgrade it from where it is now. And then we also thought you should see some of the development going on out here because some of this property was rezoned. And we'll get into that in our next little segment.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on, Cheryl. It is a little bit noisy on here because there is traffic, but as you were pointing out, that the citizens of the city were burdened to maintain what should have been the responsibility of CDD.
That's right.
So by the same token, you could foresee that the city will have to take over and maintain, to be fair to all the CDDs and districts, for maintaining the Welland Park,
Oh
correct?
yeah, and
Yeah, I mean,
they
the
should have
roads
done it.
there.
They should have done it at the same time in 2017.
So that will put additional burden on the citizen of this. And at the same time, you are pointing out that some of the commercial development, which was supposed to take place here in this northeast corner, to spread the contribution to the city coffer from different, from different parts of the city, such that in case that annexation happens, the city contraction, which we know that there is a possibility, then the city will be in a better position rather than jamming up along the US 41 of the commercial development in Welland Park. Shouldn't be the city safer, all us citizens, if the commercial development is spread around, correct?
That's exactly right. You totally hit it on the head, because they also, not only did they remove or rezone the property that we have in the video, which is on Panacea, it was rezoned and it's sometimes called downzoning to residential. Some of that should have been commercial, like you said, to offset the enormous price that residences cause to the government. They removed that, rezoned it to residential, and they're counting on all of the commercial on in Welland Park, but they've also downzoned the little neighborhood commercial nodes that were put in the city in 1959. So however they think they're completely redesigning the city, the people of the city are really going to be hurting, and it's not going to be too far in the distant future.
Yes. Well, we know that the fallacy of being a pre-platted community, it's the sustainability in the the long future of the city. And again, for each housing development and higher density of gated communities and so forth, they don't contribute to the city coffers. They actually take more, because there are studies in urbanistics where city have to chip more than $1.20 for each dollar they receive from these communities. So again, the health of the city and the burden on the citizens which are living in the old Northport city is going to be unfair, because the new developments will suck on more money than contributing. So for city to be truly successful and sustainable, we have to add across the city, specifically in this area, was more prone to, we are talking about Panacea here in the northeast corner, more towards economic development than having developer making big money with the huge housing development.
And the housing, they pop some of these houses in and then they're off, they're gone. But when you have commercial, they have to be maintained more by the owners of the development group. So something else that you said is about the citizens are not only going to suffer, it's going to be untenable, because not only do we have to pay for we're going to be paying extra taxes for the services, but we're going to be having to move out of the city just to provide ourselves with the merchandise and the purchasing that
the commercial centers should have been spread uniformly around the city, because otherwise it appears that it was what was planned initially, a bedroom community. So to have a vivid, sustainable and successful city, you need to support the local neighborhoods with everything they need.
Yeah, and somehow the people that have been elected since 2016, that is the time frame that we're going with. Since then, they actually think they can totally redesign a city. And I can tell you, at the beginning, they were even talking about rerouting roads. And they don't. If you're moving to Northport, love Northport. Don't try to change it.
Again, Cheryl, there is still land empty here, but it's looking like the developer are rushing up to put housing developments, which will suck from the blood of the city.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And it's a wonderful time that the city thinks that they can increase revenue by the housing developments and increasing contribution. However, not everybody is happy in the city with turning the little town feel of old Florida to a city where crowding and crime and everything else could spur because of the growth. But at the same time, we all know that being pre-platted and little development land remains, there will be a time, not in the long future, when the development will hit the wall and will hit the pockets of every taxpayer. Because we are building a government which plans to be like in Silicon Valley, and we know that most of the people here are actually retiree or young family, which sometimes have to work 2 or 3 jobs to afford the house. And the problem is that when that will happen, everybody will feel it. Correct?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So,
and Victor, one other thing is that, and we're going to talk about this on one of our future podcasts, is they're also talking about massive development on the east side of Northport. But you can take a map and divide it and see that, okay, let's take Welland Park out because that's not part of Northport. And you can see what they're doing is they're spreading houses throughout the city. They're taking away any economic development, quote unquote, which has been provided as far as the nodes, the neighborhood commercial nodes. Actually, I shouldn't say any. They're taking a good amount because when you remove the gas stations, which they did, then there's not a lot of impetus for smaller businesses to come in and thrive in these neighborhood commercial nodes. Most of this comes from the gas stations. So now as you and I are looking at Panacea and we're heading over to Plantation, there's a huge amount of this that's supposed to be was for commercial.
So you are saying technically that many areas, specifically here in the northeast side, are underserved regarding energy delivery. And we know very well that hurricanes are in the future of forecast of our land, and we have to rely on energy. And even if electricity will be there, still will be resupply, recharging station and so forth, which should be planned because that gives the mobility independence and the safety net that we need when hurricanes are striking our land, correct?
Excellent points, yes.
So,
especially when you're talking about the energy part, because that's in their minds. Who knows really what is guiding them, but they think that they can remove gas stations from Northport and what we're going to walk. I can tell you, living 6 minutes away from Port Charlotte, which I and the rest of the east side of this city lives, we all go to Port Charlotte for our gas. So all they did was eliminate the taxes and the money they would get from the gasoline taxes in the city, and they're handing
because it's the revenue. I mean, it's the tax sharing. Yeah, the 1 cent tax.
Yes.
Or all the sale tax they contribute to the county, which redistributes to the cities according to the population.
Yeah. So we're losing the gas taxes in Northport as well as what we give to the county, and that's all going to Charlotte County
instead of staying in our community.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. So it's first. Let's help ourselves by having the right distribution of energy supplies and also keep some of that revenue to help our community rather than funding development in the surrounding counties.
And let me just add a little anecdote here. After Ian, you, Victor, came all the way from West Villages to take me, because I was flooded in, to take me to Charlotte County Stadium to get some free astronaut food.
Yeah, I do remember because there was a very good setup there, and we congratulated the National Guard for the good job.
It was actually the Florida Guard.
Yeah, Florida Guard, yes. I'm sorry. Yes, and I did participate in many areas of our county, in Inglewood here in Northport and so forth. In my neighborhood, I volunteered. It was a tough time. The city came together, but we had to put something in place to give us stronger. And specifically, I thought the food, because we brought it up. There were areas which were flooded and will be flooded in the future. And I hope that someone at the city level works to have a safety net for supply of food and energy in case of emergencies such as that.
Yes.
Without a plan to have local availability, we are going to have the same situation, people suffering for a few days if, another big hurricane was struck.
Yes, and by making all of these areas residential and leaving out commercial, there's no gathering place for people like me on the east side, east of Toledo Blade. There's no place for us to go except heading 8 minutes to the west and going to Charlotte County.
Yeah, so we have to balance, and I understand that governments help each other. We are all Floridians, but at the same time, again, our skin is closer than anybody else.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, Cheryl again. We are here in front of a development. There are earth-moving equipment, pumps, and there is noisy here a little bit, but that's development what creates as nuisance.
And right now we're actually in the picture of the show, we're standing in front of the plantation part of, looks like this development of poultry called Arbor Oaks. Looks like it comes all the way from Panacea where we were, and it comes all the way, they destroyed all of that, all of the trees and nature is coming all the way to Plantation, because we can see the traffic on 75 from either position that we stand. And like you talked about, the ambient noise, we were watching a big pump, and it's pumping water out of someplace and into someplace.
They have to do the retention ponds. And
okay.
But we see here some fallen trees, and we see the medium and the Panacea, and we see the traffic lights, and you were mentioning not the traffic lights, sorry, the street lights.
That's right.
You are mentioning that they are not working at night. We have a school not far from here. Early morning is still dark sometimes. So how are the people dealing with it?
Well, I don't know about the people, but I can tell you that when we were it was 2015, and it's important to understand the history, because where you're standing out now without understanding where you've come from. And what happened, Plantation, according to, I think this was Vanessa Carasone's possession, if you want to call it that. This was her agenda item, Plantation. And it was McDowell's was Panacea, and McDowell and Hanks, along with Andrew Sias and Corey Hutchison, all signed a promise to a pledge. It was called a pledge to the people in the CDD at Panacea. I don't know what they're called. There's several of them. Yeah, you visited them, and they signed a pledge, and they said, we're not going to allow this overgrowth anymore. We are going to make the citizens pay for your private landscaping, which is the median and the 2 right-of-ways or easements. Now, what happened at the time in 2015 when we had to approve the original development order is that Tom and I said, okay, well, we're going to take what was in the order, which was the sidewalks, the bike lanes, and the roads, but it's up to the developer to worry about the street lights and the median and the right-of-ways and the irrigation. Well, Rhonda said, no, I'm going to go ahead, and Rhonda DeFranco said, no, I'm going to go ahead and approve the street lights because we need to be careful of these little kids going to school. And that's where a lot of these street lights were around Panacea at the school, at the middle school. Well, I go out in the morning sometimes to run my errands, and as you can see from the pictures that we will be displaying with this podcast, almost all of the street lights are out. And it's been like that. It's not from Hurricane Ian. It's been like that for a long time.
So it's not a cause, they were not cause being out by the hurricane. They were like that before, you are saying?
They were like that before. And even if they were out from Ian, that was in September or October, whatever the date was. So they've had 6 months during the school year to replace those lights. And even some of the poles and some of the fixtures are down, and they still haven't been addressed. And you also see that along Toledo Blade. But we're saying right now in this conversation to Panacea and Plantation. So that was it. We originally were, Rhonda originally went with the 2-people majority, which was Jackie Moore and Linda Yates, to approve bringing not only she didn't approve the landscaping, she only approved the lighting. So she gave them a majority.
The safety and, whatever the city could provide as help. But then everything was actually funneled to be tapped from taxpayers.
That's exactly right. Yes, and she said, okay, the taxpayers can pay for the lights because we have the kids. Yes.
Yeah. So, by the same token, the city could have could be asked to pay in another CDDs such as Welland Park for city lights and so forth. But
of course,
I'm not trying to push any agenda here, but just trying that the citizen of city of Northport should be treated fairly and not overburdened by things they don't receive as service.
Especially for political promises, because that is all this was in this plantation. Panacea was a political promise by McDowell and Chris Hanks. If the people voted to put them in office in this area, they would reciprocate quid pro quo, and they would transfer and rezone the property to the people of the Northport so that they could pay for it. Yes.
So just to be clear to our listeners, we are not attacking any person, but we don't want the future elected official to follow on the tracks of things which didn't work out in the best interest of every citizen.
The best interest, that's exactly the word. If you're working for the best interest of all the people, this is not the kind of thing you do. And if you're working for the best interest of people, why aren't you keeping track of the reason that it was transferred in the first place, which was, at least by the majority, which was the street lights?
So bottom line, there are many good people that I respect in the city of Northport. I respect everybody's interests, but it's time to step up front and think about being a candidate, a true candidate who doesn't serve the interests of special interests such as developers or cater only for election purposes, but think truly, open heart, with fairness, accountability, and sincerity to the best interests of everything going on.
And that's all you should be serving in office for, is not to unite the people on the dais, which is exactly what is going on in this city. It's called United. It means unite the people on the dais so that they all vote the same way, or if they don't, at least they know the majority is going to win and they can dodge their votes and play politics, as people say. I don't happen to believe in playing politics. I happen to believe in scamming and other, I can attach other phrases to it. However, it's not in the best interest of the people. They're paying your paycheck. They're working 2 and 3 jobs sometimes. They're using their savings if they have some. And these people in office are taking advantage of them, and it's wrong.
Yes. Well, thank you for listening to us, and we will be in touch, and we'll be coming with different aspects from different parts of our beloved Florida.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.